If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Your thoughts and stories truly inspire us and others in this growing community. Don't forget to like the video if it moved you, and make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss tomorrow's special story. We have another powerful tale coming your way, and trust us, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching and being part of our journey. From diner waitress to corporate powerhouse, all because of one act of kindness. It was a cold, rainy night in St. Louis, Missouri. The streets glistened under flickering streetlights as rain hammered relentlessly against the windows of a quiet roadside diner. Inside, the warm scent of grilled food and brewed coffee lingered in the air, mixing with the faint hum of an old jukebox playing a forgotten tune. The diner, usually buzzing with late-night truckers and college kids, was nearly empty. Just a couple of regulars sipping coffee and a lone student tapping on a laptop in the corner. Behind the counter, Rachel Collins, 26, wiped down the Formica surface for what felt like the 100th time that evening. Her shift was dragging. Her feet ached. Her apron had ketchup stains, and her ponytail had long since given up trying to look neat. But she didn't complain. She never did. As she glanced out the window, something caught her eye, a small figure barely visible in the pouring rain. She squinted, leaned closer, and her heart dropped. Just outside the door, sitting motionless in a small wheelchair, was a little boy. He looked no older than 5. Soaked from head to toe, he sat hunched under a thin blanket, his hair plastered to his forehead, his small hands gripping the arms of his chair. Without hesitation, Rachel rushed out, her sneakers slapping against the wet pavement. The cold wind bit through her sleeves as she knelt beside the boy. "Hey, sweetheart," she said gently, her voice barely louder than the rain. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The boy looked up, his wide brown eyes filled with uncertainty. "I'm waiting for my dad," he whispered, barely audible. Rachel scanned the street. No car, no adult, no sign of anyone coming for him. The sidewalk was empty except for puddles and passing headlights. "You can't stay out here, honey," she said softly. "It's too cold. Come inside. We'll wait for your dad together, okay?" The boy hesitated, then nodded. Rachel wheeled him inside and guided him to a booth near the radiator. She grabbed a clean towel and gently draped it over his shoulders, her hands moving with care. "I'm Rachel," she said, smiling as she knelt beside him. "What's your name?" "Eli," he replied shyly. "Well, Eli," she said warmly, "how about some grilled cheese and soup on the house?" Within minutes, she returned with a plate of grilled cheese, golden, crispy, and gooey in the center, and a hot mug of tomato soup. She tucked a napkin in his lap and watched his eyes light up as he took the first bite. "This is the best sandwich ever," he said, grinning. Rachel laughed and sat across from him, talking about cartoons and superheroes, just to keep him smiling. What she didn't know was that across the street, someone was watching. Someone who knew exactly who Eli was, and whose life was about to collide with hers in a way she never could have imagined. Unseen from across the street, parked beneath the glowing neon light of a corner pharmacy, a black Cadillac Escalade idled quietly. Inside, Logan Pierce, 32 years old and one of the youngest tech CEOs in the country, sat in the back seat, his phone silent in his lap. But his attention wasn't on any screen or business deal tonight. His sharp hazel eyes were fixed on the rain-speckled window in front of him, and on the diner just beyond it. He'd been searching for his 5-year-old son, Eli, for nearly 30 minutes. A moment of panic after a miscommunication with his assistant had left Eli accidentally dropped off at the wrong location. But now, relief flooded him as he spotted the small boy safe and warm inside the diner, sitting by a radiator, happily munching on a grilled cheese sandwich, and sitting across from him, a young woman in a ketchup-stained apron and worn-out sneakers, smiling like he was the most important person in the world. Logan didn't know her name yet, but something about her held him still. She wasn't looking for attention. She didn't know she was being watched. She wasn't putting on a show. She just cared. He watched as she adjusted Eli's napkin, laughed with him, and handed him a spoon for his soup. He saw something in her eyes, something that stirred a feeling in him he hadn't felt in years. Genuine kindness. No cameras, no followers, no angle. Just real, quiet compassion. and it hit him hard. Logan had everything most people only dreamed of: a multi-million-dollar penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, a fleet of cars, a tech empire that stretched across multiple continents. But in that moment, none of it mattered, because his son, the person he loved most in the world, was being shown more care from a stranger than many in his own circle had ever offered. He leaned back in his seat, heart pounding, not from stress, but from something deeper: wonder, gratitude, even guilt. "Sir?" his driver asked softly. "Wait here," Logan replied. "Don't let her leave." Before stepping out, Logan pulled out his phone and dialed his assistant. "Clara," he said, his voice low, "I need you to find out everything you can about a waitress at Haven Street Diner. Her name is unknown. She's probably in her mid-20s. She was with Eli tonight." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Yes, sir," Clara responded quickly. "I'll get back to you shortly." As the rain continued to pour and the city pulsed outside his windows, Logan sat silently. His empire had been built on code, speed, and strategy. But in that quiet diner across the street, something else was working. Something slower, deeper, and far more powerful than algorithms or boardrooms, and he couldn't ignore it. Tonight, a stranger had cared for his son when the world had gone quiet, and Logan Pierce wasn't about to let that go unnoticed. The next morning, Rachel Collins woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing on the nightstand. She rubbed her eyes, still groggy from the long shift at the diner. The rain from the night before had finally stopped, leaving the streets outside, her small apartment glistening under a pale grey sky. She glanced at her phone. Unknown number. Hesitantly, she picked it up. "Hi, is this Rachel Collins?" a woman's crisp voice asked. "Yeah, who's this?" Rachel replied, wary. "My name is Clara. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Logan Pierce, CEO of Pierce Innovations. He'd like to speak with you, in person." "Today?" Rachel blinked. "Wait, what?" "He said you helped his son last night. He's extremely grateful. We'd like to arrange transportation to our downtown office. Would you be available around noon?" Still half asleep, Rachel stumbled through her thoughts. Sure. Yeah, okay." By 12 p.m., Rachel found herself standing in the soaring glass lobby of Pierce Innovations, a tech empire built on innovation, speed, and billion-dollar ideas. Her faded jeans, worn sneakers, and thrift store jacket stood in sharp contrast to the sleek, tailored suits around her. Every step echoed too loud. Every stare felt like it lingered too long. She didn't belong here, and she knew it. A receptionist greeted her and led her to a private elevator. Her heart raced the entire way up. On the 40th floor, she was escorted into a modern office with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. At the far end of the room stood Logan Pierce, younger than she expected, but composed. And sharp, dressed in a dark, tailored suit. He stood up as she entered. "Rachel," he said, extending a hand. "Thank you for coming." She shook his hand awkwardly. "I didn't realize your son was—" "My son," Logan said gently, cutting her off, "is everything to me. And last night, you took care of him. Not knowing who he was, not asking for anything in return, just being kind." Rachel shifted in her seat, unsure where this was going. "I just didn't want him sitting out there in the rain. He's just a kid." Logan smiled faintly, nodding. "Exactly, and that's why I want to offer you something. A position here, at Pierce Innovations." Rachel blinked. "A job?" "You won't be coding or building apps," he said, "but I need people around me who remind me what this is all for. I want someone like you on my team, someone grounded, someone who does the right thing, even when no one's watching." Rachel stared at him, stunned. "I'm just a waitress." Logan leaned forward. "No, you're someone with character. That's something money can't buy, and I'd be lucky to have you here." Silence fell for a beat. A 6-figure salary. Full benefits. A fresh start. Rachel's world tilted. She wasn't dreaming. This was real. But could she accept it? Could she step into a world so far from the one she knew? One thing was certain. Her life was no longer the same. The first day at Pierce Innovations felt like stepping into another universe. Rachel Collins, once a waitress at a roadside diner, now walked through polished glass doors and chrome-plated elevators, holding a security badge with her name on it. The ride to the 40th floor was silent, except for the hum of the elevator and the pounding of her heart. Everyone around her wore crisp suits, carried tablets, and moved with purpose. Rachel felt like she was in a movie she hadn't been cast. Fority, like she'd wandered onto the wrong set. Her desk was minimalist and modern, positioned near a row of sleek cubicles. A small welcome note from Logan Pierce sat beside a new laptop she didn't know how to use. As the hours passed, she tried to keep up, sorting emails, reviewing reports, sitting in on meetings she barely understood. She nodded when others nodded, took notes she couldn't make sense of, and smiled through the confusion. But behind her back, the whispers began. She was a waitress, right? Must be some kind of PR stunt. Pierce is probably feeling guilty about something. Rachel heard the murmurs in the break room, saw the glances when she entered a meeting, and felt the tension whenever she asked a question. She didn't say anything. She just worked harder, hoping it would be enough, and for a while it was, until things took a sharp turn. One afternoon, as Rachel was organizing documents for an upcoming project, Clara, Logan's assistant, appeared. At her desk, her face was tight with concern. "Rachel," she said in a hushed tone, "there's been a data breach. Confidential files were leaked. It's serious." Rachel froze. "Okay, but what does that have to do with me?" Clara looked around before leaning in. "Someone saw you talking to a man from Omnidyne Tech, one of our biggest competitors, last week, at the diner." Rachel's blood ran cold. She remembered the man. He was a regular back when she worked at the diner. He'd asked her how her new job was going, made small talk. She didn't think much of it. "You're not saying you think I don't," Clara interrupted quickly, "but others do. Logan, he needs answers." Rachel's throat tightened. Her hands began to shake. She had worked so hard, fought to prove she belonged here. And now, just like that, everything she'd built was hanging by a thread. The whispers weren't just whispers anymore. They were accusations. By the end of the day, she was called into Logan's office. The room felt colder than usual. Logan sat behind his desk, his expression unreadable. "Rachel," he said quietly, "I need to ask you something. Did you leak company information?" The words hit her like a punch to the chest. "No," she whispered. "I swear I didn't." But in this world, sometimes innocence wasn't enough. She could feel the walls closing in, and unless she could prove the truth, everything, the job, the trust, the chance at a new life, might vanish just as quickly as it came. Rachel Collins sat stiffly in front of Logan Pierce, the weight of his question pressing down like a thundercloud. "Did you leak company information?" Her breath caught. The room felt like it was closing in. "No," she said, her voice low, shaky. "I didn't. I would never—" Logan didn't respond right away. He slid a manila folder across the desk. Inside were printouts, emails, access logs, even chat transcripts, all tied to her login credentials. The evidence was damning, but none of it made sense. Rachel flipped through the pages, panic rising. "I don't know what this is. I've never seen these messages. I didn't send them. I don't even know how to access half this stuff." He studied her, his jaw tight, expression unreadable. "If that's true, then we need to find out who did." Rachel nodded slowly, her heart pounding. "There was a guy at the diner, a regular. He asked me about the company a few days ago, said he used to work in tech. I didn't think anything of it, but now, maybe he's involved." Logan's eyes narrowed. "You should have told me." "I didn't think it mattered," she said. "I didn't even know his last name." He stood, paced to the window, then turned back. "All right, if you're telling me the truth, help me prove it." That night they worked late in Logan's office. Rachel, Clara, and the cybersecurity team dug through digital trails, reviewing everything, login times, external IP addresses, email routing. Slowly, a different picture began to emerge, one of precision, manipulation, a frame job. By sunrise, they had a name. Graham Norris, a senior executive who had full access to the systems, and a long-standing grudge after being passed over for promotion. He had used Rachel's login and planted the evidence, counting on her inexperience to make her the perfect fall girl. By noon, he was fired. When the news broke internally, The whispers about Rachel stopped. Heads turned for a different reason now: respect. Later that day, Logan called her into his office once more. This time the room felt different. "You didn't have to fight for this," he said quietly. "You could have walked away." Rachel met his eyes. "So could you." He smiled, the first real one in days. "I took a chance on you, Rachel, and you proved I was right." Her eyes filled with emotion, but she held her ground. "Thank you for trusting me, for giving me a shot when no one else would." He nodded. That's what real leadership is, believing in people before they believe in themselves. For the first time, Rachel felt like she belonged, not because of a title, not because of a salary, but because she earned it. The girl from the diner, the one who gave a sandwich to a stranger's child, had stepped into a world that once seemed unreachable. And now she wasn't just part of it. She was changing it. This story was more than just a twist of fate. It was a reminder that a single act of kindness can open doors no one ever expected. If Rachel's journey moved you, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment where doing the right thing changed everything, or met someone who believed in you when no one else did? Share your story in the comments. Your words could inspire someone else watching right now who might be facing their own crossroads. Also, let us know where in the world you're watching from. It's amazing how kindness connects us across cities, countries, and cultures. Whether you're watching from a small town or a big city, your voice matters here. If you felt something while watching this video, hope, inspiration, maybe even a little strength, please give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss tomorrow's story. We've got another powerful tale coming your way, one that just might be exactly what someone out there needs to hear. Thank you for being here. And remember, one moment of kindness can change a life, maybe even your own.